In one of our recent board meetings, a high-performing executive was giving an update, but he was clearly not feeling as if he was performing in a high fashion. He looked frustrated, he looked irritated and a little upset with himself. And he felt that, the team that he was reporting into him was working on a project and they were being very collaborative, but somehow they were not being progressive in the right direction. And they were just going round in circles, the timelines were shifting, and a lot of ambiguity and a lot of flux all the time, a lot of changes happening and goalposts constantly being shifted. So at this point, you can imagine how he was feeling, right? And I asked him, I said, are you familiar with this Six Sigma concept of 5W and 1H? He smiled and he said, I think I know where it's going to be heading, but you know what? Tell me properly. I want to understand how I can make my project team work better in a collaborative way, but surely progressive, heading towards the outcome in a timely fashion. Hi, this is Shweta here, and I will be discussing with you today 5W and 1H, which is actually a Six Sigma concept, and how you can use this very well-known management concept in your day-to-day functioning with the team when you're working on some key projects, key initiatives to make sure it's moving at the right speed, in the right direction, leading to the right outcome that you are after. Okay, so just a quick recap first of all. So what's Six Sigma for people who are not familiar with this? So Sigma is a Greek word and it is a measure in statistics. It measures standard deviation. So what's the number of variation in a spread of value? Let's keep it simple. In business context, what that really means, if someone says they have Six Sigma operations, means they make around 3.4 defects. So Six Sigma actually stands for 3.4 defects per million opportunities. Think about it. That's the level of accuracy. That's the level of efficiency. 3.4 defects per million is what Six Sigma stands for. Now, if that is the level of efficiency, streamlined functioning, and accuracy, then the company is delivering output in an absolutely brilliant way, leading to a very high performance. Now, the concept which is one of the concepts which is there within Six Sigma is 5W and 1H. So what does that really mean? By the way, by the time I speak to you about, I think the first W or second W, you will know exactly what the other W's are and 1H is. But let's understand the nuances which are involved in this, okay? So when you are looking at a project or an initiative, the first thing, now it could be done with a team, it could be done with yourself, just sitting on your own, but let's go through the steps. So the first is, what are you trying to achieve? What's the outcome that you're after? Okay, and not like what's the outcomes that you're after. The question really is, what's the core number one outcome that you're after with this project? And it's clearly jotted down, clearly defined in a measurable way. Here, the mistake that people make is they talk about, oh, we're looking at this, but force yourself to come to one core outcome. What is that one core thing that you're after? Okay. The second is then, why? And for me, this is the most important question, actually, to be very candid with you. Why? And I'll tell you why. Because what people do, and especially executives who are go-getters, they love to take on more projects, wherein I always remind people that be the kings and queens of deletion. Try not to add to your list. In fact, try to abort projects. Try to let them go. You have to be so methodical, so choosy, so picky about what you are committing to. And why? Because if you are saying yes to something, the question really is, what are you saying no to? Because you don't have unlimited time and resources, right? You have to be careful of where you are committing and why you are committing. So again, going back to the management world, there's a very simple thumb rule of asking this why 5 times, like why. So for example, someone might say, okay, we need to do this exercise because we need to do pricing strategy. Okay, why? Because, if we don't do that, we will become irrelevant to our marketplace. Okay, why has this become relevant right now? Oh, because there is a competitor who has just come on the block and they're offering aggressive price. Okay, so why is that important? Oh, because we are getting into our high season, so it will really impact our value and volume. Okay, why that is important? Oh, that's important because of the profitability or the survival of the company, right? So eventually it comes down to the very core financial or non-financial consequence, but you need to be very clear that why you need to commit to this project. And if it's getting fuzzy and yeah, it's good to do, it'll be really nice and you know what? it can wait. It can really wait. It's not worth committing the resources. So be clear as to why that project needs to be done, okay? And be rigorous, be thorough. And that's exactly what I do, with our executives. Before they say, yeah, let's go for this, it's like, hold on, why exactly? And they appreciate this value add that we actually end up saving time and resources because that project could have been deleted or waited or whatever, not that important, right? It's the prioritization, which is one of the skills which really smart managers and executives and business leaders have. Then you move on to the third W, which is who. Now, again, huge number of distinctions sit here. And what I mean by that is when typically you ask someone saying, who's going to be working on this? So in this case, this executive, he was like, oh, my 4 team members are working on this project. And I'm like, okay, so who's really accountable? And who's responsible? And he was like, I understand these words are similar in meaning. So what do you mean by that, Shweta? And I was like, look, this is what you need to understand. And same for you, please jot it down if you have to. Accountable really means where does the buck stop? Simple, okay? So if you are accountable for something means you cannot really say, oh, but I couldn't do it because that fellow didn't do this and this person didn't do this. It doesn't matter. Reasons stop existing. You are the person accountable. You have to mobilize the resources and make sure that that project gets delivered. But yes, to get that project delivered, you could take other people's help and make them responsible. So it's possible someone is responsible for the project but not accountable. And some person could be both responsible and accountable. But generally for the project, there is one person who's accountable. You don't have 4 people or 3 people accountable, because if that's the case, then no one is accountable exactly in this executive's scenario, because everybody was trying to collaborate with no progress because there was no one person who was taking charge of the project and spearheading it. Very important. Whatever you do in your organization and your unit, make sure you're asking this question, saying, if this is the target, if this is the project, if this is the initiative, who's that one person who's really accountable for this? Okay, so that's an important point for you to remember. And then when you move forward, you're talking about when do we want this project to complete? Okay, so a simple difference here to note is that yes, you need to have a clear timeline, but very importantly, work backwards and chunk it down and have at least some phase timelines. Otherwise, sometimes when you say, okay guys, this is a 4-month project, generally the rush gets crept in right towards the end of 4 months, and that's where bad quality, defects, errors, pressure, stress, all that stuff creeps in. You don't want that. So you want to stagger your timelines, as in phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and this is the time when the project gets launched or gets activated, right? So simple things, but they do really help you ensure that you are working with high quality level in your organization. And then the final one, which you might feel is not that important, but actually it is, the last W is where. Where will this project get implemented, or where will this initiative get implemented? So what I mean by that, is this local? Does it have any geographical consequence? Are we looking at some department leverages or some sector synergies? And ask this question, because you might be thinking very, very local, wherein just by asking this question, you're like, yeah, we can do this here and we can implement it here. And people are very, very clear about the benefits of the project and where it's going to be implemented. Okay, so just a quick recap on W's. We're talking about what needs to be achieved, and slow down at the second question, which is why do we really need to do this? And then if you're convinced that we have to, because I've asked some 5 whys, and yes, there is a logic in it, then you move on to the third one, which is who is that one person who's accountable, and then obviously along with that person, build the team for the project or initiative. Then we're talking about by when. There has to be clear accountability timelines, right? Otherwise we're all nice and happy and doing things. And then the final thing is, where will this be implemented? So those are your 5 W's, and then there is this one H, which is how. How will this be done? Now here, please don't get me wrong. I'm not expecting for you to know at this stage all the steps. Sometimes it's possible, sometimes it's not possible, because project evolves, things change, right? So you figure out the best pathway, you figure out the critical minimum path, okay, which is the path of minimum resistance, and which gets you from point A to point B in the fastest possible way, right? That's called critical success path. But if you are clear about the first few steps, then your team will get started. And this is where what I've seen is that executives make a mistake. So they maybe tell people what they have to do, give them the timelines, they know about where it's getting implemented, but they ask the person saying, are you clear about what needs to be done? And the person says, yeah, that's fine. But that detailing, that thinking through of how goes missing. And when that happens, then people pretty much go round in circles and the project suffers. So the point that I'm trying to make here is that, look, whether you do it with a team or you do it yourself, I personally prefer to think at my level first, saying, okay, how would I go about it? If I was accountable, what would be the first few steps I would be looking at? And that's where my application is coming in. You know, I'm actually being rigorous here. And once I can think of few steps at a draft level, then I take it to the team and say, guys, let's build on it, okay? Or let's think of a different way of doing, which is better. But these are my ideas, but let's listen to your thoughts and opinions. How would you go about it? And then obviously I put into the mix if it can add value to the collaborative intelligence, right? So that's your 1H. And it's really important to be clear on the first few steps as the project is getting initiated. Now, at this point, you can imagine the executive was like, I did some of it, but I missed out some of it. And I'm like, yeah, that's why there's a little bit of a circle phenomenon happening right now in your team. So he knew exactly what he needed to do, go back to his team, get them around the table and discuss 5 W's and 1 H to check, are we all aligned and do we have one person who's accountable with a very clear timeline and spearheading the project. But along with this, I also gave him a really, really cool hack, which he absolutely loved. I hope you will like it as well. But the point is, again, just in my true style, it's not a rocket science. It's very commonsensical. But you know what? What really matters is not what you know. It's what you are doing in a consistent way in your organization. So, and my team knows I do this day in and day out. They would tell you that. So what I do, just so that you know, actually what I told the executive, I'll tell you that. So I said, look, once you have had this discussion, whether it's one-to-one, whether it's in a team scenario, whatever that is, always just develop this habit, have this habit, always ask for a recap. Simple. Just say, and the script, literally the script for this is, just to make sure we are aligned on this project, could I please request you to recap for me the agreed action points and the timelines of the project? Or if it's week to week, you can say, just to make sure we are totally aligned, would it be okay if you were to recap your action points and clear timelines between now and 2 weeks? So just give me the key timelines and actions. And then you sit quiet, just sit back and just listen. And the team member will recap it for you. And look, I'm sure you know what are the benefits of it, right? It straight away tells you how clear they are, how aligned they are. If they've missed out something, you have an opportunity to correct it now. And also the other benefit is because they are saying it, they own it. If you say it, they don't own it. It's a basic human thing, right? So make sure that they're recapping. So they own it, they understand it, and they feel absolutely in full ownership of that project, and they can move forward with clarity and confidence. So I hope you like that hack and you just make it part of your management style. So once again, a quick recap, 5 W's and 1 H. Make sure you're clear and your team is clear. And to ensure that they are clear, ask them for a simple recap. Just to make sure we're on the same page of understanding, could you please recap for me what are the agreed action points and timelines? So remember one more thing, I hope you found that useful, but one more thing, just subscribe to this channel so you are getting some very practical ideas and insights for you to become a high-performing, even high-performing executive in your organization and help your team and make sure that you're moving forward, as I said, with clarity and confidence. So take care, and I'll be in touch with you again very soon.